Two players had their contracts picked up by the Heat. Was the move a surprising one? And what can Jaime Jaquez and Kel'el Ware do to continue their growth? We'll answer that on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And David, we are starting with some news. The Heat have picked up the contract options on Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Kel'el Ware. It keeps both under contract for the 2026-2027 season. Nothing surprising here. This was expected. Now it's official. The commitment to Ware, though, especially not surprising considering how they kept him out of Kevin Durant trade talks. But for Jaime, it is a nice sign of confidence from the team.
I'd agree. I think they, you lose, Tyler Hero, obviously. You trade Haywood Highsmith, and yet you kind of are counting on this team's depth being one of its greatest strengths. And I think the belief in Jaime that last year was more of a fluke than the norm moving forward, and that he can continue to build, that once he's healthy, he'll be able to be the productive player, more like what we saw from him as a rookie. And I think that's a great sign of confidence. I wonder what he's been doing. It feels like, and I know we've talked about this before, somewhat anecdotally, but doesn't it feel like this team has been awfully quiet this offseason? I know a lot of fans might be saying, certainly from a transactional perspective, they've been quiet, but even just, we haven't seen the offseason workouts. We haven't seen the videos being posted. It feels like that's either the team is doing that consciously or the players are doing it consciously, but I just don't feel like I've been as aware of these players making these kind of videos as they have in years past. And to me, that's a good thing, because I wonder what Jaime can be doing behind the scenes to continue to develop his game.
Yeah, the most we've seen is the Heat posting videos of everybody being back at Kaseya Center, starting kind of this training camp deal. But to your point, up until now, we haven't really seen up at 4 a.m. in the gym working hard, like the whole thing where, you know what? Frankly, I don't feel like I've seen that much from many players across the league. Outside of like a Luka Doncic men's health cover shoot, I haven't really seen a whole lot of, here's my body transformation thing, whatever. Maybe everybody's just over it. Maybe that was just sort of a bubble that popped all of a sudden. Yeah, but it is good to see everybody back in the gym at Kaseya, at the Heat's practice court. And so that's happening. The Heat also announced formally that they'll be holding training camp on FAU's campus in Boca Raton, something we've already known and talked about. They emailed everybody today saying that that's so, and that's the case. So media day on the 29th, and they come back on Tuesday, start training camp, and then they do training camp through Friday. So that's all the news there. In terms of the options here, just to put some numbers to it and some figures to it. So the option year that the Heat picked up for the 2026-2027 season for Jaime Jaquez was worth $5.9 million. The year that they picked up for Kel'el Ware was at $4.6 million. The Heat also have a fourth-year option that they could pick up next summer on Kel'el Ware. That'll be worth $7.1 million, but that's a next summer conversation. So you've got Jaime now guaranteed under $5.9 million. Kel'el now guaranteed at $4.6 million. Kel'el, that feels like that's going to be a good value, right? That you get a starting caliber center on a rookie scale contract. Not breaking news there. For Jaime, $5.9 million for a guy who has so far been a role player, has had moments of something more than that, but for the balance of his first couple of years has been a role player, and then last year was definitely disappointing. And I think what the Heat are going to want to see here is a bounce back year to make their commitment here to Jaime worth it. And I don't want to overstate the commitment, right? It's not that big of a deal. It's still on the rookie scale contract, but it is some form of a commitment here. So I broke down things that we need to see from Jaime Jaquez Jr. going into his third season. He'll be 24 years old. I have two things that I need to see from him. One is a required ask. The other one is a bonus ask. And I have the same thing for Kel'el that we can get to here in a second. But my required ask from Jaime, be healthy, and I need to see that level of athleticism that we saw from his rookie year. He's not this crazy 4.4 40 speed guy, jump through the ceiling athlete, but he was in the dunk contest. He is athletic in the way that he moves around the court. I'd say he's very powerful. I think he's strong. He has good straight line speed. He's he's able to move around and kind of get into that low post game and the spin moves and the agility and the balance that it takes to do all of that. We didn't see that from him last year. And look, he played 66 games. He missed 3 and 4 games here and there with various injuries and ailments. And the main stat that I look at with him in terms of, hey, here the proof is here that the athleticism wasn't what it was his rookie year. He had 12 dunks last year compared to 29 as a rookie.
Unbelievable.
That's the requirement. Get healthy, find that athleticism because it's so important to his game.
I wonder though. I mean, look, the health certainly is crucial, and I think there's more to it than that. And I think that's where you're going with this second ask, because I think there's a continued growth offensively that he needs to show out there. So I'm curious, what's your second targeted request here?
Make more threes.
There it is.
Like that's the bonus. But like that's the problem. I thought
that's not a bonus though to me. That's not to me. That's a requirement. Like I honestly, I gotta disagree there. I think if you want to play in this league, he's healthy and he can be impactful, and certainly we saw that from him as a rookie. But in order to be more impactful, especially if you're going to be a third-year player, especially if you're going to get the vote of confidence that the team has just given you, you've got to be able to show a consistent three-pointer. Look, we like what Jaime can do. There's going to be things where he's going to be, I think, maybe not necessarily weak but partially deficient. I think as a defender, I don't know how high of a ceiling he can possibly have. So there's going to be moments there where he's going to give up some points. He's got to be able to find a way to make those up on the other end, and part of that is by being a solid three-point shooter. And
he can't just be a three-point shooter, though. So that's look, I'm not saying that he can't not make threes or whatever the double negative is that I'm looking for. I think but we're talking about like foundation stuff and then stuff that you build on top of that. Jaime Jaquez is not ever going to be a guy who's just standing in the corner shooting threes. I need that low post game, all that stuff, the stuff that he could do near the basket, eating up space. He wasn't doing that last year, and he needs that. Is fundamental to who Jaime Jaquez Jr. is as a basketball player, and that wasn't there for him for 90% of last season. If that's not there, I don't really care about the three-point shooting. I would be kind of bummed out if he loses all of that and he just becomes this guy who's just standing on the perimeter. Because to your point, David, like he's not going to be a high-level defender if that athleticism isn't there. So what is he? He's Malik Beasley all of a sudden? Like that's not even in the realm of possibility for Jaime Jaquez. So I'm not disagreeing with you in the terms of we need to see the three-point shooting. I guess I'm just saying let's see that athleticism and health get there first, and then let's see the three-point shooting built on top of that. But honestly, like without Jimmy on the roster and Bam now taking threes, I'm not even that as concerned as I am with the three-point shooting as I was before, where it felt like he needed to hit outside shots to fit. I don't think it's that big of a fit issue anymore if he's not making those threes at a high rate. And frankly, I thought he was worried too much about the threes last year. I kind of want him to like not worry so much about the threes. And then when the pressure's off, maybe then they start falling a little bit more. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
No, I get it. I think you're right. He just didn't seem like he was ever fully out there. Like the health, I think, was such a big concern. Like he was so limited, and then almost as excited as you would be to watch him come on the floor as a rookie, I think we felt the opposite of that last year, where you almost kind of got this sense of dread, like, you got nobody else to go to, so you've got to go to Jaime. And it's such a shame because he was such a fun player to watch as a rookie. And then last year, there wasn't anything to it. Like there was no spark. He wasn't going to add much of anything. You knew you were going to get that shot from the outside. It seemed like he couldn't get downhill with any kind of authority. It seemed almost like everybody had figured out that spin move of his. There were no backdoor cuts, none of the smart high IQ moves that we'd seen from him as a rookie. He didn't have anything. And so you hope that he can bounce back. And you're right. I can understand why health is probably tied into that almost 100%, and you need him to be healthy so he can be close to impactful. But he just also has to show a little bit more continued growth in almost every aspect of his game, to be honest with you. There's nothing wrong with that. He's a third-year player. Older as he was coming out of school, that's fine. But now as a third-year player, he still has to be able to continue to develop in order to be a long-term fixture with this team.
No question about it. Not only does he have to continue to develop, Kel'el Ware needs to continue to develop. How can he avoid the Jaime Jaquez Jr. sophomore slump? We'll talk about that. Then continue our 25 of 25 series, counting down the greatest Heat players of the last 25 years after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel because it just fits however you like to bet, whether it's a player prop or building a same-game parlay or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Well, then download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We'll be right back.
So what do we need to see from Kel'el Ware? We could probably do a full episode on this, but I kind of want to just keep this to the basics here. For me, I think his role model should be something in between Derek Lively and Miles Turner.
Yes.
And I like the Derek Lively role model just because it's very recent. They have very similar size and body type, and we've seen the success that Derek Lively has had to the point where, you know, you listen to Locked On Mavericks, and they're talking about him potentially being in like an all NBA defender this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be like, could you imagine Kel'el Ware developing to the point where we're deciding, hey, is being on the all defensive team even a realistic option for Kel'el? Imagine that with Bam. Like, forget about it. Defensively, I mean, that's a front court. Now
they feel similar in terms of physical size and length and everything else like that. But it feels like Lively's got a little bit more springiness, maybe a quicker hop than Ware does. Yeah. So
but Ware has probably a little bit more touch. Not
yes.
Probably does. Just does. He has
Absolutely.
more touch. So yeah, they're not exactly the same player, but it's a great point, right? And that's sort of where you go at the required versus the bonus. To me, when it comes to Kel'el, again, not breaking news here, it's the rebounding consistency. That's the required development here. Rebounding, especially I think on the offensive boards where you look at Derek Lively and he gobbles up offensive boards, getting putbacks, creating second chance points opportunities for this Heat offense that we talked about at length in yesterday's episode, David. Like, just grabbing a couple more offensive boards per game. That's the kind of thing that really sets an offense apart. We've already decided they're not going to be the Houston Rockets from last year. They're not going to subsist on second chance points, but there's still a lot of room for improvement there because they've been so low in that category for basically for the entirety of the Jimmy Butler era. That's just not something that they've done a lot at a high level. Kel'el Ware can at least provide that element. That is real versatility. That's something that the Heat have otherwise not had over the last few years. Do that. That's additive. That's a value add. That's a requirement, in addition to obviously the defensive rebounding side of things. So that's one requirement. And then the other one is, again, for somebody touted as a shot blocker, we didn't see very many blocked shots last year as a rookie. Not trying to be too hard on him, but for a guy who's touted as a shot blocker, that's another part of his development. You want to see that year over year start to improve.
I'll add one more thing quickly.
Okay.
I want to see him be aggressive out there. And I mean be a damn bully because he got punked so hard by Jared Allen, somebody who's not known for being kind of a more dominating type player. And Ware just really was he was just kind of exposed out there to a certain degree. So you need to see him. And that's why I think Sproul called him out, publicly the way he did in Las Vegas Summer League, because after coming off of a really weak showing in the postseason, you had the full offseason to kind of develop and work on this, and then you go out there and lay an egg early on in Las Vegas. That's not going to cut it. You need to be better. And there's the potential there. Like, we like Ware. We want him to be able to thrive here, but he needs to be able to tie it together because right now I think his growth, his potential is so high, but there needs to be an extra something there, another level, and he needs to be able to show it consistently.
Well, he's right now at the beginning of his career, he's looking at like multiple roads, right? And he's like, okay, I could be a Derek Lively type, and then name your version of that. I could be a Jared Allen type. Like, these guys are anchors defensively. Can I be that? There's a Miles Turner type who's, with the 3-point shot and all that kind of stuff. Can I be a little bit of that? And then there's another path and it's got a bunch of potholes on it, and it's just like a bunch of lousy fast food chains off the side of the road. And that's the DeAndre Ayton path. And you don't want to go down that path. You don't want to go down that path. And I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying you want to avoid it. And when Erik Spoelstra calls you out in Vegas for a lack of effort, that's when you start saying, okay, I got to turn this steering wheel a little bit and make sure I'm not going down that potholey path. Bonus thing, I'm not even including the three-point shooting in this as a bonus because I think that's more almost like expected at this point.
Absolutely.
So I'm not even in it. So can you show a little bit more touch in that floater area, 3 to 10 feet outside the restricted area? I don't need to see it this year. That's like the definition of a bonus. Like if you start hitting that a little bit more consistently, that could have a pretty cool impact on the offense too. But we're going to move on. This is our 25 of 25 series, looking back at the top 25 Heat players of the last 25 seasons. Each episode, we'll be taking an in-depth look at every player who made the list as voted on by us and our Locked On Heat Insider community through the lens of what made them a definitive part of the franchise's history. Checking in at number 5 on our last episode was Bam Adebayo. At number 4, he's a Hall of Famer, the George Harrison of the Big Three, the most interesting man in the world, and someone whose nickname comes from making big shots. It is, David, Chris Bosh.
Chris Bosh was selected 4th overall in the 2003 NBA draft by the Toronto Raptors. He was a 5-time All-Stars with the Raptors. Went in 2010. He joined Dwayne Wade on ESPN and then announced he would be joining the Miami Heat. Days later, LeBron James announced he would be joining Miami as well, forming the Big Three that would define the most successful era in team history. At the time, Bosh was slated to play the power forward position, just as he had in Toronto, with Zydrunas Ilgauskas or Eric Dampier filling in at center. His production waned, of course, alongside his new teammates, from 24 points to 19 points per game, but it was evident that Bosh was still impactful, named an All-Star for a 6th consecutive season, even if it was criticized by some media pundits early in his tenure. The Big Three faced backlash almost constantly during their first season, and it seemed that Bosh was the easiest target after Miami lost their finals matchup versus the Mavericks. The cameras captured Bosh crying outside the Heat locker room as he was openly mocked for being too emotional, while overlooking the fact that he outscored LeBron James during the NBA Finals by almost a full point per game. But that was always the way it felt with Bosh, like his position with Miami wasn't quite as secure. LeBron was the best player in the game. Wade was already a franchise icon, and Bosh was the least productive member of the three, well-spoken and a little odd, a square peg in a round hole, perhaps. Bosh would continue to excel quietly in his second season with Miami, doing little things that mattered to his teammates and to coaches and peers around the league, as he was named as an All-Star yet again. Miami acquired Shane Battier in free agency, who was coming off the bench for most of the season, but Battier's ability to guard power forwards allowed Erik Spoelstra to experiment with some different lineups, including ones with Bosh at center. And thus the small ball era was born in Miami, with Bosh's defensive versatility and long-range shooting opening up new possibilities that unlock the team's full potential. Miami would go on to win the 2012 championship over the Oklahoma City Thunder, with Bosh dropping 24 points in the deciding Game 5 win. Bosh would continue redefining the center position the following season, 2012, 13, and make the All-Star team yet again, even as his production dropped from the previous year. But the team kept up winning, establishing the best record in franchise history at 66-16, including a 27-game win streak that was one of the longest in NBA history.
Such a great
but of
season.
course, it was. Bosh would have one of his biggest moments ever in Game 6 of the NBA Finals, securing the rebound to find Ray Allen in the corner. While Bosh went scoreless in Game 7, it didn't really matter because they would go on to win a second consecutive championship. The next season was a solid one for Bosh, as Wade had begun his maintenance program and LeBron was perhaps slightly checked out. Bosh had the opportunity to step up in multiple moments, and he did so, but even he seemed bogged down by the constant scrutiny of the team, and he would wind up struggling against the Spurs in the finals, thus signaling the end of the Big Three era. Bosh would re-sign with Miami in 2014 after James would leave to Cleveland, and with Bosh being courted heavily by his hometown Houston Rockets, Miami offered Bosh a 5-year, $118 million contract. Now with James gone, Bosh's production once again climbed to Raptors-like levels, but unfortunately, he was diagnosed with blood clots that would end his season prematurely. It was much of the same the following year, with Bosh's season, his last, being it ended all too soon. In 2016, Wade had moved on to Chicago. The team was rebuilding, and the Heat effectively told Bosh that he couldn't return to active duty. While there was public tension between his camp and the team, it became evident that that Miami couldn't allow Bosh back on the court, and he was simply too much of a liability, and his career thus ended. A 2-time champion, an 11-time All-Star, and a player who revolutionized the game in his own unique way.
I loved Chris Bosh. There's very little I could say bad about him. As a player, I thought he was transformational. I've talked about this before, but I remember talking with Steve Kerr about the foundations of the Dynastic Warriors, and he's talked about how there's no Draymond Green at the 5 if Chris Bosh doesn't play the 5 for the Big Three Heat. And we've seen how transformational that those Warriors teams were, and obviously I think that starts with the Big Three Heat. I remember the story of Eric Spoelstra going to Oregon and learning from then football coach Chip Kelly about the Oregon offense and the pace and space, exactly, and how that sort of birthed the inverted offense that we saw after the 2011 finals failure. That doesn't happen without Chris Bosh. There is no inversion to the offense without a guy who could space the floor like Chris Bosh, right? So he was the definition of a guy who was sort of just always on the bottom of the mudslide, right? When things didn't go right, he was the one eating the bleep. He was the one kind of just getting it fed to him. And when things went right, it was LeBron and D Wade as the all-time greats who were responsible for it. And I think basketball aficionados really appreciated Chris Bosh. Obviously, Miami Heat fans really appreciated Chris Bosh for his roles on those teams. And so you look at where he's in the rankings, and that very much is reflected here. Our panel, the highest that he was ranked was 3, right? You think 3?
Wow.
3. Considering that within the last 25 years, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Jimmy Butler all played for this team. Somebody ranked him 3. That's very high. The lowest, he was 6. He didn't get lower than 6. You and I both had him ranked number 4. We're going to talk about trivia and some of our sliding doors moments after this. Surprised at where the panel had him ranked, David?
No, not at all. I just, again, the production wasn't there. It didn't stand out. But I think the fact that he was an all-star in each of his seasons here really goes to show how well he was appreciated, how well he was recognized for his impact, and just doing the small things, allowing Miami to do so much. Was he capable? I mean, the guy was putting up 24 points per game in Toronto. He was, I think, when he joined the team in 2010, he was kind of viewed somewhere around like the 5th or 6th best, like certainly a top 10 player, maybe somewhere around 5th or 6th best player. Like he was getting all-star votes before he joined
MVP votes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, MVP votes.
Yeah.
MVP votes. Like he was considered that great, putting up big numbers on a team that just quite frankly didn't win a lot. I think his best teammate was like Morris Peterson or something like that.
Yeah, those
like
Toronto teams sucked. Yeah.
He absolutely did.
And he was this low post, dreadlocked, highly skilled in the post kind of player, and he evolved right when the league was evolving, and he gets a lot of responsibility for and credit for the league evolving in the way it did. But like, you know, the league passed by the Al Jeffersons and the David Wests and stuff. Like those guys didn't hang on much longer. And Chris Bosh, to your point, yes, and you say he wasn't all that productive. He was still averaging 18 points per game.
Yeah,
as the third option. I mean, that's a really good third option and a highly efficient one at that. Started involving the 3-point shot a little bit more, obviously. And then when LeBron leaves, he goes back, and what's he do? He averages 21 points per game, right back to where he left off after he left Toronto. So he clearly was capable of more. And I think everybody essentially knew that. And that's why I think that his respect around the league was just so freaking high, is because this is a guy, again, who just always kind of, he was the one who had to quote unquote sacrifice the most out of the big 3. And everybody kind of knew and respected it. And also respected the fact that he never complained about it. Like he was just like, yeah, man, like that. And that kind of speaks to who Chris Bosh is as a person. But let's talk trivia.
All right, here's a good one. Chris Bosh guest starred in what HBO series that aired from 2004 to 2010?
HBO? I knew he showed up in like a Disney show, but that's not what you're talking about.
No, he's not.
HBO. What would have been an HBO with Chris Bosh in it? I don't know. True Blood? Was that even HBO? I have no idea. Trying to think of like what on at that time. Was it True Blood?
No, it wasn't. True Blood was an HBO show. It was Entourage. Good times.
He was in Entourage? I watched all of Entourage. I have no memory of that. That's crazy. My wife and I just started rewatching Entourage, and then she went into labor and we stopped watching it. So I don't know. Maybe I would have gotten into it, but
he was in Parks and Rec too. He also
I remember Parks and Rec.
Yeah, he also voiced
Roy Hibbert.
Heimdall in a Avengers TV series for
What?
Marvel Comics. Yeah, so yeah,
That's why I say
he
he's
voiced
the most interesting man in the world. The guy learned how to code himself, learned how to pick up the acoustic guitar. All right, so I got that
yes,
one wrong.
brewed
True
beer.
Blood wasn't a bad guess, though.
No, it wasn't. It was around the same era. I mean, I guess you could have
Yeah.
gone Sex in the City too. Maybe I don't know, something along
No, because
those
I
lines.
watched all of Sex in the City, and I don't remember him in that.
I'm so sorry. What NBA All-Star event did Bosh win 3 times?
The skills challenge.
No, he did not win that. It was the NBA Shooting Stars competition.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's stupid. They don't have that anymore.
No, they don't. It was pairing it with an NBA legend and then an WNBA star. And
That's not.
he won it with
That's what I was
Dominique
thinking
Wilkins.
of when I said skills challenge. I was literally picturing Chris Bosh alongside two other players, but
Dominique Wilkins and Swim Cash. That's a good team. They were really good, and they won 3 years.
They dominated that year.
2013, 2014, and 2015. All right, in 2013, here we go. An article for Wired magazine. Bosh wrote about his passion for what subject?
Oh, this was coding, right? This was the coding one.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
it was.
I got one of these. Jesus. Have to fire me from the show if I didn't get any of these. All right. Sliding doors moment. This is a moment that could have changed the way that this player is remembered for better or for worse, or could have changed the trajectory of his career. The blood clots is the big one. That feels like it's the easy way out, though, David. But we could do the blood clot what if you want. I don't know if you had something different here.
No, because I think it doesn't change anything. Like, he won, he was productive. We saw that he was capable, and you kind of almost just felt a little sorry that it ended the way it did. And maybe that's just not the way a player, especially a Hall of Fame great, doesn't want to be remembered. Like, you don't want to be remembered with pity or anything like that. And I don't think, for the record, I've talked to him after the retirement. I talked to him at the Hall of Fame. I don't think he feels any pity. He's gotten perfectly used to what happened, and he's made the adjustment, and he's moved on with his life, which is something that a lot of players don't do. So,
well, then I have something different.
Yeah, so do I.
Oh, go ahead then.
No, I think it's 2012.
Okay,
I think it's 2012.
What's the moment?
2012. If he doesn't evolve, he doesn't win the NBA Finals against the Oklahoma City Thunder. We talked about it before. Butterfly.
Okay, can I pause?
Moment. Yeah, go for it.
I have almost the same thing, but I have a little bit more specific. What if LeBron doesn't go crazy in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals in 2012, and the Heat just lose to the Celtics in the conference
Fair
finals?
enough.
So we have the same thing, but that, to me, I thought that was a very specific, like, LeBron moment that dramatically impacts Chris Bosh and obviously the rest of that Heat. To your point, then they don't win that championship. They don't win a championship within the first 2 years of the Big Three experiment, and this has sort of been out there now that had they not won, Chris Bosh very much expected to be traded had the Heat not won a championship in 2012. He's on the record talking about how much was at stake that year. So that is the sliding doors moment, to your point, David.
Absolutely. What instead happens is he redefines the NBA. Like, we're still seeing the effect of it now, 10 years later, 10 plus years later. Kind of emulating something that he started and has been copied around the league. Players, there's a center position stretching the floor like we've never seen in such wide numbers. Like, where almost every center has to be able to show the ability to shoot from the outside. Like, this is just different. This isn't players in the 70s kind of occasionally hoisting a 3-point shot or anything like that. This is completely different. Every center can shoot now, almost as a requirement. And I think Bosh was at the front of all that. And yes, if he gets traded and they acquire, I don't know, Dwight Howard or something like that.
That's the name. I have that written down. I have Dwight Howard as the name. So the Heat failed to win the championship in 2012. Pat Riley pulls the plug on the Big Three experiment. Hey Spo, your fancy schmancy Chip Kelly offense didn't work. We gotta go back to basics. We need a big, burly, rim protecting, bruising center. Dwight Howard just requested a trade and then didn't request a trade and then requested a trade again and then didn't request a trade. And then Sam Van Gundy took a sip of his Diet Coke and then he did request a trade again. And then all this happened. And now he's leaving the Orlando Magic. Dwight got traded from the Magic to the Lakers in 2012. What if instead the Heat had gotten involved? Chris Bosh is in the mix there. The Heat hypothetically land Dwight Howard, and it's a new Big Three of Dwight Howard, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade. That's a fascinating what if. For Chris Bosh, he ends up playing somewhere, Orlando or some other team in some sort of multi-team deal. And if you're the Heat, you forge forward with a very basic look, and I don't I don't know if they have the same level of success against the Spurs in 2013 and 2014. If it's Dwight Howard there without, and LeBron and Dwayne Wade don't learn to play with Dwight Howard, does LeBron say, hey, that Bosh thing didn't work? I always want to play with a rim protecting center. Maybe Kevin Love never ends up playing center for the Cavaliers. Maybe he doesn't look at it that way anymore. Maybe Anthony Davis doesn't end up being the guy he wants to partner with the Lakers. I mean, there's a fascinating amount of butterfly effect, like alternative realities here.
Yeah, no doubt. I wonder how the pairing would have worked. Would it have been as successful? Would it have been what? I mean, yeah, maybe he'd never leaves in 2014. Maybe LeBron never leaves in 2014. Because he plays alongside Dwight instead. I don't know. It's not. I know leaving in 2014 was so different. Like there were so many different factors. I don't think he ever had a problem with CB necessarily, but maybe if he had enjoyed 2 straight years of success in Miami, and they had beaten the Spurs, I don't even know if that's possible either. Like
if they have Dwight Howard and they really are going back to basics, are they even bothering to do the? Like it doesn't make sense to have Dwight Howard, LeBron, and Shane Battier necessarily. Although you could argue it still works. They probably just play drop with the 5 and then switch everything 1 through 4 instead of switching everything in the blitz, the blitz and help scheme that they ended up running. But what if LeBron isn't playing any 4 and he's just playing perimeter and he loves it in Miami all of a sudden because the wear and tear is just, I don't know. I have no idea, but
for the record, I'm really glad it worked out the way it did.
I am too. And also I don't think they beat the Spurs with Dwight Howard in that Chris Bosh spot. Dwight, the fall off for him was pretty much right away.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't. Maybe with Miami Heat conditioning, he holds on for a couple more years. And Dwight, we got to remember how dominant that guy was at the time. His best years were already behind him at that point, but he was still like coming off a very good, a couple of really very, very good seasons.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I'm glad it worked out the way that it did, though. Is he jersey worthy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You got a favorite Chris Bosh jersey?
Ooh,
I know mine.
I think it's standard white, to be honest with you. That's what I think of when I think of. Yeah.
Yep. Just no nonsense. Just, that's Chris Bosh. He just wears that number 1 in the crisp white. I love that jersey. Also when he wore the Miami Floridians jersey and did the afro with the whole photo shoot. That's the jersey. If you could find that jersey, that's the jersey.
I was thinking that one too.
The Jones Battier Zoe test, obviously. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Bosh plus
amazing.
Bam plus Ware plus Nico. Could you imagine Nico learning from CB?
And it was supposed to happen, and it could have.
I know.
It's just he wasn't that far removed. Like they don't they don't need Hassan Whiteside because Bosh is still available. Yeah, it would have kept Hassan on as a backup or like in 2016.
Well, do they draft Bam if Bosh is on the roster? Probably not. I don't know. They could have loved it. Didn't stop them from drafting Bam when they had Whiteside on the roster, so maybe they would have. But
can you imagine a healthy CB being back on the roster when they reacquired Dwayne in a couple seasons, like a reunion like that?
My heart.
Yeah, seriously. Like I'm feeling a tear well up there, just at the idea of it. Like it was just so sad for him. He was just such a great player, and we didn't start really covering the team until after the Big 3 era had ended. So we just didn't get to see him in those moments in the locker room and stuff like that. But that's one of the biggest regrets I have. But unfortunately, still been able to talk to him after his career, and he's just always been so well spoken, such a good media personality, and everything else like that. So
you guys can catch David's conversation with Chris Bosh. It's pinned. I think it's still pinned to our Instagram account, the Locked On Instagram account. If people want to go check that out. Versus pin this player against the player who came before him. Ask if we did it, if we got it right. So we have Chris Bosh here at number 4, Bam at 5. We love Bam, but we got it right here.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. The impact is undeniable, even though those 2 seasons were cut short.
Got rings. He's got the rings. And the way he impacted the entire NBA, I mean, Bam did too, to his credit. Like, everybody was kind of looking for their Bam after after he kind of blew up in 2020, but still, it's got to be Bosh because of
that's
the
funny
resume there.
But you could have had 2 of them.
Could have had both.
Bosh and Bam.
Imagine. Let us know what you think in the YouTube comments. What do you think of Chris Bosh, Bam Adebayo front court could have accomplished here in Miami? But thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day.